Good morning, boys and girls. Welcome to the 2020 edition of the Wilkes County Soil and Water Educational Field Days. I'm glad y'all are here. My name is Ranger Wheatley. Actually, I am retired Ranger Wheatley. This is retired Ranger Alec Hurt. We were from Rendezvous Mountain. We worked there for about 30 years, and we were both retired, but this was our job when we worked with the Forest Service, and we still continue to do it because we enjoy it. Enjoy teaching you all about our natural resources, our renewable natural resources, and the places that we live in. The theme of this year's workshop or the field days is we all live in a watershed. So we're going to try to tie some of these critters into the watershed, so just bear with us and we'll see what happens. Okay, welcome to the wildlife session. Okay, now, what was the first thing you thought of when I said wildlife? What's the first thing that popped in your mind? Animals. Anyone else? I need one more word to go with that, animals. Preceding the word animals, go ahead. The definition of wildlife is basically wild animals. Now, another question. What are three things that animals, wildlife, have to have in order to survive? Three things. Three basic things. And these three things, now think of it like this. The same things that these animals need, guess what? We need the same things that these animals need. So think, what's one of the things they need? Good. Water and food. Good job. We've got one more. Food, water, and there's another one. Kind of. We say three, but there's four, maybe even five, but two of them's kind of, hopefully, a given. What's the other two? Food, water, shelter. What's another one? Look around you. What is this? What's this called? An area? Yeah, we'll talk about, hopefully talk about the habitats too. But
Forest.
The forest? Okay. Well, the word I'm looking for is space or room. We're not talking about outer space. We're just talking about room to do what they do, to find their food, find their water, and have a good shelter where they can be protected from their predators or whatever, or the weather, the elements, and all things. Remember, they're just like us. They have to have the same thing. Okay? Food, water, shelter, space, and then what else do they have to have? It's kind of all around us, and we do it without even thinking about it. Good air. Okay? Animals like good fresh air just like we do. Good fresh water. And that's where our watersheds come in, that good fresh water, how important our watersheds are. And we'll get into that just a little bit more when Alec takes over on this stuff. But anyway, okay. We talked about the basic needs. Now, earlier, one of y'all mentioned the habitat. Now, tell me about a habitat. What is a habitat? It's where they live and what has to be in that habitat in order for them to live and survive. What we just talked about, right? The food, water, shelter, air, and space, okay? All right, let's just imagine for just a second, talk about competition, okay? All right, so we just say, right here is a really, really good habitat for certain species of animals, right? Right where we're at. Good area, okay? So, does this area have everything needed for maybe for white-tailed deer? What about a beaver? Okay, possible, yes. We have water and stuff. Okay, so a habitat basically is where an animal lives and it has to have all the things they need, okay? So if it's a really, really good habitat for these critters, do you think maybe that there might be some other critters out here somewhere that don't have a good habitat maybe? And where do they want to come to? They want to come to this good habitat where there's plenty of food, water, and shelter. But if that happens, what is the bad part of that? What's the bad thing about all these other critters coming in here with these other animals in this habitat? Yes, they can exhaust or use up their resources or their needs there in that habitat, and then they'll have to go somewhere else and try to find another habitat. But if they do that, guess what they're going to find? Other critters already living there. So it's kind of a tough balance there to keep that going, okay? So we talked about the basic needs of wildlife. We talked about the habitat and stuff. So now, I'll tell you what let's do. We've talked about wild animals. Let's take a look at a few animals. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to let you choose the animals that we're going to look at, okay? Now remember, all the critters that we have here are found in North Carolina, okay? Every one that we have here, and some of these are found in other states also, but everything we have. So when you guess these animals, make sure that you're guessing an animal that lives in Wilkes County, okay? All right, raise your hand and name me a critter that lives in Wilkes County. And by the way, I'm calling these things critters. That's just kind of a term, but I think it's kind of short for creature, right? Creature. So that's why I use the word critter. So I think it's pertinent. But anyway, okay, you start us off. Pick us an animal that lives in North Carolina. Foxes? Which one of the foxes? Okay, how many foxes, different foxes do we have in Wilkes County? 2 kinds, okay? What's the first one? The red fox. What's the second one? The gray fox, okay? All right, now how do we tell the difference? What would you say this one is? Okay, let's go for that. Okay. All right. What is this one right here? Fox and a red fox, right? That's what you're saying. This is the gray, this is the red. All righty, let me introduce one more. Okay. Well then, if this is a red fox and this is a gray fox, what is this? They're both red foxes. Does everyone in the class agree that both of these are red foxes? Okay. All right, we'll take a closer look in just a minute and we'll find out which is which, okay? Now, you say this is a gray fox? Why did you say gray fox? A lot of gray in it, some reds and some whites, okay? All righty. Here is the red fox. Red, okay? Looks just like what's supposed to be the red fox. Now, this is the critical one, okay? Is this a red fox? You don't think so? Can you tell me why? How you identify them is by the color. But you know, always, every single time, that's not true, okay? Occasionally, these animals will do something just a little different, okay? Always remember this, okay? This is a true gray fox, okay? And sure, it has gray fur and the red and stuff, but you know what gives it away and tells me that it is definitely a gray fox? Check out the tip of that tail. See the black tip on it? That tells me that is a gray fox, okay? Now, let's take a look at the red fox. Okay. Now, check this one out, okay? We had a little accident. These furs are real old, but anyway, okay? This is a red fox, you think? See the white tip, okay? So remember, the white tip, the red fox, the black tip, the gray fox. So now, tell me what kind of fox this is based on the information that we just went over. It looks just like a red fox, but guess what? Got the black tip. See the black tip, and part of it's gone, but this is a gray fox. Isn't that weird? If I saw this out somewhere, I would believe that it was a red fox, but upon closer inspection, okay? Are you going to find these animals in the same place? The red fox and the gray foxes? Not normally. They're different. They have different habitats. The red fox likes to stay out in open fields more in the meadows to catch the mice and rabbits and stuff like that. The gray fox prefers to stay in the woods, more area. And a gray fox can climb a tree if the tree's leaning. Now, I'm not talking about a vertical tree, but I'm talking about the trees leaning. They'll go up there and get in the squirrel nest and all other stuff like that, okay? All right. All right. Name me another critter. How about you, young man? Yes. Just so happen to have an opossum. Now, what is special about this animal? And I'm going to tell you something. There's something very, very special about opossum, okay? A lot of people think they're kind of a nasty animal because they get in your trash and they're scavengers, and yeah, they do eat a lot of garbage and stuff, but what is real unique about this opossum? Let me give you a little hint. It's the only blank that lives in North America. Marsupial, good job, good job. This is the only marsupial that lives. Now, marsupial is what? Marsupial is what?
Hungry.
A marsupial, basically, the mother has a pouch, okay? And she carries her young in the pouch, and that's where she has her feeding vessels, okay? There you go. Kangaroos, koala bears. But do we have kangaroos in Wilkes County? No.
Yeah.
Do we have koala bears in Wilkes County? No. So this is the only marsupial that we have in North Carolina. Okay. So he's kind of special. And I love the possums. Now let me check out one thing before we go into another critter. He kind of looks dirty, you know, a little bit, but look at this. Check out that real beautiful white hair underneath that. So back in the old days, when grandma and maybe mama and maybe the daughters, the men of the house would trap these animals, and mom and grandma would make coats out of these. If they wanted a coat like this, they'd make it. If they wanted a real pretty Sunday coat, they would take shears or whatever and shear off the darker fur and leave that white under there, and they'd have like a possum coat. But they didn't advertise possum coats, they like mink coats. But anyway, this is the poor person's version of a mink coat, okay? Good job. All right. Name me another critter, please. Let's go with a predator. Y'all know what predators are? It's an animal that eats meat and hunts other animals for food, right? Okay. All right, name me a predator that you think might be. Coyote? Okay. This is the coyote. Big animal, isn't it? Canine. It's in the canine family. Okay. He's classified as a predator, classified as a, not the herbivore, the omnivore, but the, help me out, Alex.
Carnivore.
Carnivore. Thank you, sir. I told you retired will make you forget things, okay? It is considered as a carnivore, but guess what? Read an article a few years ago that said the folks out west were having a terrible time and a problem with the coyotes. What kind of problem do you think they were having with the coyote? Yes, they do that. They'll kill the calves and the weaker critters and the weaker animals in the lot. They'll try to take them out, you know. So, but it wasn't the wildlife that they was bothering, or the animals they were bothering. It was the watermelon patches. The coyotes were destroying people's watermelon patches, eating them, destroying them. So they kind of had to go in and do something about it. So would you think that a big old coyote like this would like a red, juicy water? Good job, good job. Okay, all right. Now, we talked about the predator. Can you name me a herbivore? A herbivore. Now, a herbivore is an animal. It's a plant-eating animal, okay? Name me one of those. Where's the young lady that was going to answer? There you are. Can you pick me out an animal that's considered as a herbivore? It only eats plants, doesn't eat meat, just plants. The deer? Yes. White-tailed deer. It's really the only species of deer that we have in North Carolina now that's kind of indigenous to this area. But anyway, the white-tailed deer. How does it get its name? White-tailed, okay? Underneath of its tail is white. And most of the time, if you're out in the forest or out somewhere and you spook one of these things and it takes off running, the white tail or white flag is usually what you're going to see, okay? All right, male and female. What do we call the female deer? Oh, good job, good job. Call it a. What do we call the male buck? The one that most guys are out after to put the antlers on the walls and that kind of stuff. What do we call it? Oh yeah, you guys ought to know this. Buck, that's the truth, okay? Oh, I have a sample of an antler here with me. It's a small buck. This was we found it in the woods. No one shot this animal. It was just died of natural causes. It's a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It's a 7-pointer, very small. Would you harvest this deer if you were hunting? Would you harvest this deer during deer season? Would you? You would? Not me. Too small. This is a young deer. We need to let this deer grow. Let it grow up. Take out the smaller does or the older does and use them for food and wait for the bigger buck. Okay? The buck. All right. Okay. We went through quite a few of the animals, and we have a lot more here also, but we are on a kind of a time limit, so we've got to move on. Alec, what is your favorite critter?
I think my favorite.
Well, one you want to talk about?
Second favorite would be this one.
All right. You want to tell them about it?
Does anybody know what this is? This is a beaver, and a beaver is an herbivore. It basically eats the bark off the trees. It doesn't eat the tree, but it chews the tree down to build its home, and it eats the bark off of the tree. Now, to be able to eat the bark off of the tree, it has to have long, sharp teeth, and it gets the color of its teeth from eating the wood and the tannin acid that's in it. Now look at the eye placement on the beaver. The eye placement is on top of the head, and why do you think the eye placement would be on top of the head? Where does the beaver live? In the water, in the watershed. So it's able to swim and see above the water while it's swimming. Now, one of the other things that the beaver has is its tail. And the beaver's tail enables it to steer in the water. It enables it to flap its tail on its home in mud and pack it down and build a watertight home. And then it also can use it to slap a warning. And so that's your beaver. Another animal that we would find in the watershed would be this one right here. What do you think this one is? This is a raccoon, and where do you think the raccoon would live? When I was a young boy, we would find raccoons along streams and rivers because they primarily ate crayfish, small minnows, and frogs. And if you look, you can see the teeth and how sharp they are and what it would be able to eat. You can also see that the eyes are forward. Now what does a raccoon eat today? A raccoon basically eats out of trash cans and places like that. You can even find them in New York City. And they've adapted to be able to live in this type of habitat. This is another animal that can be found in the water and watershed along creek banks and rivers. And you can look at its tail, it's slick. Look at its fur, it's real shiny. Now look at its teeth. It reminds you a lot of a beaver, and that's because it basically eats herbaceous plants. And this one here is your muskrat. Another one that can be found near and around rivers and watersheds is this. It's making a comeback in western North Carolina, and this is your river otter. Again, if you'll look at all these animals that live near the water, you'll see that their pelts are shiny. That's because they're basically waterproof. This one can use its tail again to swim with. They're very playful, and they primarily eat things like mussels, which is freshwater clams, frogs, and fish and minnows. This little fella here, pound for pound, is one of the most ferocious little animals that you would find in the forest. Don't see many these days, but when I was a young boy growing up, we worried about this getting into our chicken coops. It likes to eat chickens and catch chickens. This one is the long-tailed weasel, and it's kind of a golden color. There's a smaller version of this, which is called a least weasel, and it's more reddish in color. Kelvin asked me what my favorite animal was, and besides the beaver, this is my most favorite animal. This is the black bear. You'll find it here in western North Carolina and all over the state. But if you'll look at the black bear's eyes, you'll notice they're small. You'll look at its nose, you'll notice that it has good sinuses, and look at its teeth and all. But how would you like to have a 3.5-year-old female bear like this one come after you? If you look at these claws, you'll see how powerful they are. And if that was to hit you with 300 pounds behind it, it would tear you up. But how many of us have ever seen a bear in the wild? It's very seldom that we'll see a bear in the wild because they're very elusive. They'll hide from us and try to avoid us, just like we don't want to run into them. Now, I'm going to show you a little bit more about the bear. By showing you the skull. If you look at the skull, you'll see the eye sockets are straight forward. If you look at the sinuses, they're very good. Look at the teeth. It can tear up a lot of different things. But why does the black bear not have to have the best eyesight? And that's because if you were 300 pounds and had claws like that, you wouldn't have to worry about people either. The black bear will hide from you and run away. And that's pretty much all the animals that we have to show today.
Well, that concludes our wildlife session for the day. I hope you enjoyed it. Hope you all learned something. And y'all stay safe out there, okay? And hopefully we'll see you again. If you get a chance, come to Rendezvous Mountain Educational State Forest and visit, and you'll see some of these critters maybe alive running around in the forest and stuff. But we do encourage you to visit there when we open back up, or when they open back up. We encourage you to come out, and you can get programs like this there also. So teachers be aware of Rendezvous Mountain. And okay. Well, thank you all. See y'all later.